The main hall of the royal palace. The head of state gives the black-haired girl who came to him the right to choose a groom. This right is a thank you to the girl for winning the war. The black-haired woman opens her eyes wide. She expected a completely different reward. The girl had not yet thought about marriage and her future chosen one. She thought she would meet her love when the time was right. The king tells the black-haired woman that whoever she chooses will be obliged to marry her. People in the hall begin to whisper excitedly among themselves. None of the mothers of the young aristocrats wants the girl to choose her son. The fact is that there are not very good rumors about the black-haired man. Some believe that this warrior girl comes from a savage tribe and can smell blood from several kilometers away. To understand the whole situation, it is worth delving into history. 30 years ago, the skilled warrior Amir Pervaz saved the heir to the empire. He, instead of rewarding Amir, ordered him to exterminate the northern Lur tribe. The loyal warrior agreed to fulfill the king's wish, although he understood that he was going to die. The Lur tribe was ready for war. Unlike the kingdom's troops, Amir died. After that, his sons began to lead the army, but they also died on the battlefield. Then Amir's daughter Asha had to take control of the army. This black-haired girl, like her father, knew military affairs. She was an excellent horseman and flawless swordsmanship. Days passed. Ashu held on with her last strength. Waging an unequal battle is not an easy task. The Lur tribe fought desperately, not sparing the emperor's soldiers. The number of corpses in the cold northern lands increased every hour. Asha began to develop a plan of retreat. But one day a miracle happened. The emperor's army won. But the joy from this event did not linger in the heart of the dark-haired woman for long. Due to the harsh winter, the supply of food products to the Pervaz tribe was stopped. People were dying of hunger. Of course, the king knew about it, but he was in no hurry to help the inhabitants of these lands. As always, Asha had to save her people on her own. One day, the black-haired woman received a letter from the head of state. The king summoned Asha to his palace to thank the girl for her heroism. The black-haired woman believed the man. The girl hoped that the king would give the Pervaz tribe money to buy food. However, the treacherous and greedy lord had a completely different plan. The man asked Asha how old she was. 22, your grace, answered the black-haired woman. The king noted that young ladies usually get married at this age. Haven't they proposed to you yet? The second question. Asha said in a low tone that she really hadn't been proposed to yet. The king smiled sinisterly. I grant you the right to choose your bridegroom. I consider it a reward for victory. That's how it all happened. Now Asha is confused. She does not know how to react to the king's words. And the man takes advantage of the condition of the girl. He asks the servant to give Asha the lists of aristocrats. A girl can choose any of the proposed men. The names of aristocrats at the beginning of the list indicate the high rank of their families. But won't the reputation of the Pervaz tribe suffer if I choose someone who doesn't want to marry me? Asha asks. The king says that in this case, the family of the chosen one must pay monetary compensation. Black-haired looks around the hall. A girl wants to choose someone who hates her to get money. The only question is how much the parents of the unfortunate will be willing to pay. Ash should choose an aristocrat from a very rich family. And there is one in the hall. Black-haired says loudly that she wants to marry the Duke of Carlisle Haven. This is a member of the royal family, a prince who has been temporarily deprived of power and authority. Carlisle is quite a handsome guy. Dark red, almost crimson hair, orange eyes. The appearance of this aristocrat is mesmerizing. Carlisle was stripped of his crown prince status only 4 days ago. All because of the boy's quarrel with his father, the king. Asha innocently tells the head of state that Carlisle is on the list of aristocrats proposed to her. Besides, he is in the first place there. The king grits his teeth in rage. He assumed that Ashi would choose some rich man, but that this rich man would be his son. The man barely restrains himself so as not to drive the girl away. Asha reminds the queen that if she refuses, his family will have to pay the head of the Pervaz tribe monetary compensation. The man drills the black-haired man with an angry look. People in the hall begin to whisper, but this time not about the origin of Asha, but about the stupidity of the king himself. If he does not want to give his son to the black-haired woman, he has the right to demand money. That is, the queen will still have to pay the girl for the victory in the bloody war. The only question is what the reward will be, money or a member of the royal family. Suddenly, Karail stands up and approaches the black-haired woman. Marquis Pervaz. The boy smiles mockingly. I accept your offer wholeheartedly. Asha freezes in place. Her plan failed. All a girl needs now is money, not a man, even a very handsome one. The black-haired woman thinks what to do now. Her confusion amuses the boy. He twinkles his eyes. Good luck to you, dear. Carlyle perceives marriage with Asha Pervaz as a kind of game. Royal living room. Carlyle is sitting in an easy chair drinking tea. Asha enters the room. She greets the boy and asks why he called her. At the same time, the black-haired man calls his fiancé the Crown Prince. Carlyle smiles slyly and reminds his wife that he has been stripped of that title. As we know, this happened very recently when Asha arrived in the capital with her army. Rumors spread through town that Carlyle had seduced his father's mistress. The black-haired man was not at all surprised by this. The king is a greedy, selfish, and capricious person. Why would his children be different? The guy crosses his arms over his chest. You've been silent for too long. Carlyle guesses that Asha has her eye on him. The young man hopes that he is wrong, because it will be very difficult to interact with a girl who is head over heels in love. Not at all, Asha finally spoke. The girl folds her hands in her lap and says that she is jealous of her future husband's body. This is partly true. Although Carlyle is tall, making him an obvious target on the battlefield, he has trained muscles. Asha would like to be as strong as Carlyle, but it is almost impossible. The discussion of muscle and strength somehow causes Carlyle to blush faintly. Shall we talk about our deal? The boy changes the subject. Asha does not mind. The only thing she doesn't understand is what kind of deal Carlyle is talking about. The guy lets out a scornful laugh. Did you really think that I agreed to this marriage because I fell in love with you? Black-haired asks the young man what he wants from her. Carlyle says that his father deprived him of the status of heir to the throne for 3 years. During this time, the boy would like to serve Pervaz. Asha is surprised. She could not even imagine that one of the members of the royal family would pay attention to the land of the late Amir. But the black-haired man is in no hurry to be happy either. Carlyle will definitely not work for the benefit of other people just like that. Besides, what will happen when the prince's sentence expires? Will the boy leave the residence of Pervaz? In whose hands will this land end up? Carlyle replies that he is going to divorce Asha when his father restores his status. The redhead also warns Asha that he will not treat her as a wife. If the girl accepts this and does not try to make Carlyle fall in love with her, he will not spare money for the financial support of the Pervaz lands. The girl opens her eyes wide. Carlyle's words make her suspicious. Asha thinks that Carlyle wants to gain experience ruling her lands and then just leave them. Black-haired offers the boy to conclude a contract. The contract, according to which Carlyle will be obliged to provide financial support for the lands of Pervaz for 3 years. The girl does not hide her distrust of the redhead, but he is not offended. The boy, on the contrary, likes the emphatically cold attitude of his future wife towards him. Carlyle smiles out of the corner of his mouth. We'll get along great. A few days later, Redhead's room. Lionel Bailey, Carlyle's friend, carefully reads the contract Asha sent the Duke. Gentlemen, the document is completed correctly. And this is surprising, considering the origin of the black-haired woman and her dubious biography. Lionel, like the king, is not very happy with Carlyle's marriage to Marquise Pervaz. The redhead shrugs. It's only for 3 years. Besides, marrying this savage will help me get rid of old things that don't belong in my house. The boy talks about some of his family members. From the age of 15, Carlyle lived on the battlefield. The king did not spare his son's health and without hesitation sent the young prince on the most dangerous tasks. The man did this because of his new wife, who simply hated Carlyle. She prayed to God that her stepson would die in battle. The new queen wanted her son to become the heir to the throne. But despite the hatred of his father and stepmother and numerous battles, Carlyle lived to the end of the Great War and returned home. The people greeted the crown prince very warmly. Queen Beatrice, the king's second wife, did not like this. She promised herself at any cost to tarnish the young man's reputation and to deprive him of the title of crown prince, and the queen managed to do it. A few days after the young prince returned from the war, Viviana Lowry, the king's mistress, told her husband that Carlyle had broken into her room. The boy said that he was just confusing the door, but the king did not listen to him. He informed his son that he was depriving him of the title of crown prince for 3 years. That's how it all happened. Carlyle knows that the empress set up this scene with Vivian. Beatrice's plan was to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, get rid of both her stepson and her husband's mistress. The redhead is sure that the queen will try with all her might to prevent the restoration of his title. She will seek to secure the throne for Matthias. But Carlisle is not going to give up what is rightfully his so easily. The guy stands up sharply and hits the table with his hand. The throne will be mine. I will kill anyone who encroaches on him. But in order to fight against enemies, Carlisle needs to increase his power and influence. The guy wants to do it in Pervaza, where you will move after marrying Asya. So you're going to marry a woman you only saw for the first time 2 days ago? Lionel asks timidly. You don't know her at all. The redhead says that's not quite the case. He had to communicate with Asya. One day the boy was walking through the capital of the empire. He wandered into a rather dangerous area, where the local drunkards were attached to him. One of them told the waiter that he had to show his pass to walk here. 2 other men, meanwhile, began to tie up Carlisle, threatening him with death. The red-haired man was dressed in a simple road cape with a hood, so the drunkards did not recognize him as a prince. Carlisle was careful because one of the men had a knife. Suddenly, someone's disgruntled voice was heard from somewhere. 3 against 1? Not fair, we will also take part. The drunkards turned their heads to the side and saw a black-haired girl and a young man. A fight started. A stranger stunned one of the drunkards. The other 2 were held by her partner. He asked the girl if he needed to kill the captives. No need, said the black-haired woman. Let's just leave them here. The girl pushed one of the men to the ground. 2 other drunkards took their comrade and left. Black-haired, her partner, and Carlisle were left alone. The prince smiled and thanked the girl. He also promised to pay her for his rescue. The black-haired young man asked the red-haired man to recommend cheap hotels in the capital. Everything is very expensive here, added Asya, and we have almost no money. The red-haired man turned his back to the boy and girl and ordered them to follow him. He led Asya, her partner, and 3 other young men to the palace, where they were able to rest properly. Back to Carlisle and his friend. Lionel is amazed by the redhead's story. So that day you came back so late because of Marquise Pervaz and her pack of savages? The guy sits down in a chair and crosses his arms over his chest. He says that he could not do otherwise. Firstly, he had to thank Asya, and secondly, she was going to receive the king. If the members of the royal family and other aristocrats had seen the black-haired woman in the clothes in which Carlisle met her, they would not have called her a savage princess, but a beggar. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Asya has already told her friends about the contract with the king's son. The guys, to put it mildly, are not happy with the decision of the black-haired woman. They think Carlisle just wants to use the girl. Even if it is, Asya replies in a calm tone, I don't care. The girl is ready to sell herself to anyone, if in this way she can save the inhabitants of Pervaz. For the money that Carlisle is obliged to pay according to the contract, it is possible to heal thousands of wounded during the war with the Lur tribe, and sow all the fields of the land with wheat. The girl's friends sigh. They understand that there is no point in arguing with Asya. She looks a lot like her father. She is just as stubborn and devoted to her motherland. The black-haired man who helped the girl fight the bandits asks when the wedding ceremony will take place. The young man's tone is sad. The guy is very afraid for the marquise. Members of the royal family can do whatever they want with a girl. Blackhaired says that fortunately there won't be a large-scale lavish wedding. Carlisle and the girl will take wedding vows and immediately go to Pervaz after that. The girl's friends are surprised. Has the king quarreled so much with his son that he will not arrange a nice wedding for him? But that's the least of the guy's worries right now. The wedding of members of the royal family, even if it is very modest, can stretch for several months. And the people of Pervaz need help now. In a few days, Asya walks into Carlisle's room. The girl, without greeting, asks the duke when they can leave the capital. Blackhaired wants to return home as soon as possible. However, Carlisle doesn't understand her words quite right. He thinks that Asya wants to leave the palace soon to celebrate the wedding in her lands, and the guy doesn't like it very much. They agreed that there would not even be a hint of romance in their relationship. The young man crosses his arms over his chest and rather rudely asks why Asya is in such a hurry. Is a lover waiting for her in the motherland? The black-haired man freezes in place. Carlisle's ironic question confused her a bit. After all, the girl gathers her thoughts. She tells the redhead that she wants to return through the residents of Pervaz. They need medicine and food. Now it's Carlisle's turn to be embarrassed. The boy becomes somewhat ashamed of his behavior. How did I even get the idea that she wanted romance? "This is a warrior girl," the red-haired man says in his mind. The guy assures Asha that he will try to finish everything as soon as possible. "Well, Mr. Lubar," Carlyle says to the short, chubby woman standing next to him, "you can get to work." Miss Lubar and several other women approach Asha. They are going to make her the Duke's wife. 30 minutes later, Asha returns to her fiancé's room. The girl no longer looks like a warrior. Her black, always unruly hair is now pulled back into a neat updo. Instead of a comfortable leather suit, the girl is wearing an elegant beige dress. Carlyle is impressed. He could not imagine that his bride would one day look like a real lady. Marquise says that it is difficult for her to breathe because of the corset that Mrs. Lubar made her wear. The black-haired woman's dramatic expression amuses Carlyle. The guy laughs so hard his stomach hurts. The girl frowns. Asha does not like the young man's reaction to her suffering. The redhead finally stops laughing. "If you act like that at a wedding, people will think you're unhappy," he says. The houseguests will spread rumors that Carlyle wanted to marry Asha, not the other way around. Miss Lubar asks the boy if the black-haired woman's dress is too simple for the wedding ceremony, but the young man is satisfied with everything. He says that he also prepared something for his future wife. One of the servants hands the boy a small red box. The young man opens it. Inside is the ruby necklace of Carlyle's late mother, Queen Evelyn. Mrs. Lubar is surprised that the boy wants to give Asha such an ornament. Not every groom will give his future wife the jewelry of a person who was dear to his heart. Asha herself does not understand why Carlyle did this. But the young man's next words shock the black-haired man even more. "You can buy about 100 war horses for this ornament." The girl opens her eyes wide. The redhead fastens the necklace around his future wife's neck. "Consider this my first payment." Asha does not move. She generally feels somehow strange. The girl had never worn a dress before, and no one gave her jewelry. Carlyle is about to move away from the girl when he catches a pleasant smell. The young man asks Asha if she used perfume. "So," the girl answers with a trembling voice. She is afraid that she did something wrong. Maybe she chose a bad fragrance. The black-haired woman tells her groom that the maids have been offering her floral or fruity perfumes. However, Asha does not like such sweet scents. She chose the smell of freshly cut grass. Carlyle freezes for a moment. The girl notices this and asks if everything is okay. "So, the aroma is wonderful." The young man sharply turns his head to the side. The young man reacted in this way to the perfume chosen by the girl because his late mother adored the same fragrance. Carlyle tries not to think about it. The young man smiles at the black-haired woman and says that the necklace suits her. "It seems it has found its new owner." Carlyle touches Asha's cheek with his hand. A second later, he breaks tactile contact with the black-haired man. The young man hurries to leave the room, having previously asked Mrs. Lubar to prepare a dress for the ceremony. Asha puts her hand to her chest. The girl's heart beats at a frantic speed, all because of Carlyle's touch. The black-haired man mentally notes that his hands are similar to the hands of a warrior. And she likes it. "Yes, Asha, pull yourself together," the black-haired woman says to herself in her mind. "Now we need to think about the inhabitants of Pervaz and about the benefit they will receive from this marriage." A few days later, Asha and Carlyle's ceremony. People gather in the royal church. The aristocrats discuss among themselves the wedding of the marquise and the prince. Many still cannot believe that Carlyle will marry a savage princess. In addition, the guy had a bride. This is Lady Cecilia, a fair-haired girl with golden eyes. The young man broke off his engagement with her only 2 weeks ago, when he returned from the war. They say that they quarreled a lot. However, Cecilia cannot let go of the redhead. The girl is obsessed with the idea of becoming a crown princess. For the sake of this title, she is ready to wait 3 years until Carlyle divorces Marquise Pervaz. The nobles take their seats. Musicians start playing trombones. The king, queen, and a tall man with long blonde hair enter the church. This is Gabriel Knox, the most famous priest of the empire. He has been conducting wedding ceremonies for members of royal families for several decades. In addition to professionalism in church affairs, Gabriel is also a very nice man. If he were not a priest, he would receive hundreds of love letters from aristocratic women every day. The king and queen sit on the thrones. The priest approaches the cathedral. Everyone and everything is ready for the ceremony. It remains only to wait for the bride and groom. Biting smiles on the guests' faces. The aristocrats are sure that Asha will disgrace both himself and Prince Carlyle. Finally, One of the nobles announces the names of the newlyweds. Carlisle and Asha enter the hall. The black-haired woman, as befits a bride, holds a bouquet of flowers in her hands. The girl tries not to look at the faces of the aristocrats. She does not want to see these strained smiles, this disgust in the eyes of the rich. But the aristocrats are in no hurry to discuss Asha's shortcomings. Their attention was drawn to the necklace on the girl's neck. All the nobles know that it belonged to the prince's dear person, Empress Evelyn. Such decorations are not given to anyone. Does this savage mean anything to him? Cecilia says to herself. The priest smiles and asks everyone who stood up to get a better look at the bride and groom to take their seats. The aristocrats immediately fulfill Gabriel's request. The blonde announces the start of the ceremony. Then the man begins to say something about the gods of harmony, love, and harmony. He asks them to protect the couple. The black-haired man is not at all interested in listening to all this. Residents of Pervaz believe in God, but their prayers are not so pathetic. It seems to Asha that people in the capital live very boringly, and the whole meaning of their life is to brag in front of others, to demonstrate their imaginary greatness and glory. With these thoughts, the girl does not notice how the main part of the ceremony ends. The priest tells the newlyweds that it is time to exchange wedding rings. Carlisle pulls a box from his pocket with a ruby ring inside. The boy puts the jewelry on Asha's finger. At the same time, he whispers to the girl that she will be able to sell the engagement ring at an auction. There they will offer crazy money for her. Asha won't get that much even from a jeweler. The girl nods her head and puts her fiancé's wedding ring on his finger. The priest hands Carlisle and Asha a sacred book that they must sign. Father Gabriel then gives the book to the king to seal it as a sign of blessing for this marriage. The greedy old man does it, gritting his teeth. The priest solemnly says that Carlisle and Asha are now husband and wife. The redhead looks around the room and smiles. The displeased expressions on the faces of the aristocrats amuse him. Gabriel says that the boy and girl must kiss to seal their vows. The black-haired girl is a little worried. She does not know whether her husband will be against her. He himself said that there should not be an iota of romance in their relationship. But, on the other hand, this kiss is a necessary formality. The expression on the young man's face is cheerful. Looks like the guy is up to something. After a few seconds, he leans over to the dark-haired girl and kisses her. The kiss dragged on. The old man lets go of the black-haired woman only when she lightly pushes him. Fortunately, none of the guests notice this gesture. The girl wipes her mouth with the palm of her hand. "Know the measure, Your Highness." Not to say she didn't enjoy the kiss. The black-haired girl just didn't expect this. The guy flashes his eyes and says that he wanted to have fun, because at such ceremonies you can die of boredom. The girl agrees with this. She herself was tired of standing and looking out the window. "The gods are watching you." The priest's tone is instructive. "Now is not the time for fun. Cleanse your bodies and minds." The red-haired man hums. "I'm sure the gods will understand and forgive the passion of the newlyweds." The priest does not answer this. 15 minutes later, the ceremony ends. The next day, black-haired room. Asha will have to stay in the capital. The girl orders her partners to go to Pervaz. There are certain supplies that they have to bring there. In addition, you need to prepare a room for Carlisle. A month later, the girl's friends are going to Pervaz. They are happy to return home. There is one problem. How to inform the residents of Pervaz about Asha and Carlisle's wedding. 2 hours pass. The city gate is opened. Asha's friends drive in, followed by knights. One of the inhabitants of Pervaz quietly asks the soldiers who these knights are and what they are doing here. Did someone decide to attack Pervaz? But the city is unlikely to be able to defend itself now. Years of bloody war had exhausted him. No, everything is fine. One of Asha's friends hurries to reassure the woman. These are knights from the royal palace. The marquise married the prince. People approach the boy. They are unhappy that Asha has become a member of the royal family. "How could you deliver our marquise into the clutches of those insatiable people?" someone asks. Asha's friend smiles guiltily and says that you won't change anything. Besides, it is only for 3 years. The only thing left for the warriors is to pray for Asha and prepare a room for the prince. A few days later, the capital, the royal palace. Carlisle is drinking tea in his office with his father and younger brother. The atmosphere is quite tense. The red-haired man is not very happy to see the king, because he took his title from him, believing a shameless lie about the relationship between the young prince and Vivian. But the boy does not show his anger. The young man smiles at his brother and says that he is now obliged to protect the southern part of the state. The younger prince can ask Carlisle a few questions. The young man will gladly tell the new crown prince about the nuances of military affairs. But the blonde, it seems, is not ready for this. "Why should I defend the South?" Matthias asks. The redhead frowns. Does his younger brother not know about the duties of the crown prince? Previously, these duties, as we know, were performed by Carlisle, and would continue to do so if someone did not decide to get rid of it. The redhead tells his brother that he will have to destroy local monsters and deal with small matters. The blonde casts an excited look at his father. The expression on the king's face is displeased. The man realizes that he made a mistake in depriving Carlisle of his title. Matthias's husband, of course, loves him more than his eldest son, but the blonde is still very young. In addition, he has never been on the battlefield and is unlikely to be able to cope with military problems. "Okay, I'll deal with that later," the man says in his mind. Now he is more interested in the money that Carlisle promised to allocate for the development of Pervaz. It seems to the queen that 50 million verons is too much for such a small town as Pervaz. Matthias, wanting to flatter his father, agrees with him. Bilyavai says that 1 million is quite enough for Pervaz. The redhead is annoyed by these words. Like Matthias, this child brought up in hothouse conditions can say such things. Pervaz fought for 28 years. During this time, enemy troops destroyed almost half of the city. And how many people died on the battlefield? It's scary to imagine. Now Pervaz needs to be restored. But the city lacks neither human nor material resources. The royal family is simply obliged to help. The king grits his teeth in rage. Matthias lowers his eyes. He is ashamed of his words. Red-haired stands up and with a slight smile on his face tells his father to teach Matthias better. After all, the blonde has a bunch of new responsibilities. Now he will not be able to just sit on the throne and listen to the praises of his subjects. Matthias will have to work hard. Several hours pass. The redhead's office. The boy sits in his chair and tells Asha and the burly gray man about his conversation with his father and brother. At the same time, the boy laughs loudly. You should have seen their faces. They don't understand what awaits them. But isn't running a kingdom's army a trump card? Asha asks. The black-haired man does not really understand why Carlisle does not want to continue to perform at least those duties related to the army. The young man says that it will not give him anything. The head of the army is only a link connecting the king and the military. The commander fulfills all the whims of the king and at the same time is responsible for the defeat of the army. This is such a paradox. I wonder what would happen to me if I lost even once, says Carlisle. Asha suggests that the former crown prince could have been tortured. Or, in the best case, deprive the right to the throne. The black-haired woman puts her hand to her heart. I'm starting to admire you, Your Grace. You have gone through so many trials. The redhead freezes in place. He didn't expect to hear that from his wife. The young man asks the black-haired man if it was a compliment or mockery. Of course, a compliment, says Asha. A gray-haired man intervenes in the conversation between a boy and a girl. He tells the prince in a serious tone that he must therefore tell Asha about his plans for Pervaz. The redhead puts a hand to his chin. Well, you're right, Sir Alfred, I will listen to your words. The guy seems to have a lot of respect for this man. Only Carlisle wants to start the story about his thoughts about the future, as he remembers that the gray-haired man and Asha do not know each other at all. This needs to be fixed. The boy says that the stern gray-haired sir is Viscount Giles Lafelt. He is Carlisle's mentor and his financial advisor. No matter how strange it may sound, this man, more than any other person in the kingdom, was against the wedding of Carlisle and Asha. The Viscount is skeptical about the black-haired woman. He doesn't trust her. It seems to the man that the Marquise just wants to squeeze more money out of Carlisle. To test this, the Viscount asks the girl what she knows about the boy. This question was unexpected for the black-haired woman, but she does not want to arouse the man's suspicions even more. So she tries to recall some facts about Carlisle. After a few seconds, the girl says that Carlisle is the eldest son of the king and the best knight in the kingdom. Right! The man nods his head. He also says that His Highness was born under the blessing of Ajarisi, the god of wars and victories. The prophecy came from heaven. An adult Carlisle was able to prove its truth. It was the red-haired man who maintained peace throughout the kingdom. Of course, the price Carlisle had to pay for this peace was high. The Viscount clenches his hand into a fist. And what do we see now? He says in a stern tone. A person who is ready to give his life for the sake of the state is deprived of the title of crown prince. The Viscount says that Asha must help Carlyle regain his right to the throne. The girl asks what exactly she can do for his lordship the prince. The man says that Queen Beatrice and Prince Matthias will not stop trying to tarnish His Highness's reputation. The Viscount hopes that Asha will protect Carlyle. The black-haired woman assures her husband that there will be no problems with this. Carlyle smiles softly. His wife's enthusiasm moves the redhead. The guy says he can protect himself. As for Asha, the young man wants the girl to be his support. The Viscount says that Beatrice will do anything to separate the black-haired woman and Carlyle. The Queen's actions can be unpredictable, so Asha and the redhead should be careful. The girl guesses that the Viscount is talking about treason, but, in the opinion of the black-haired woman, preparing for such a thing while in Pervaza is not very smart. If something happens, the prince won't even be able to get to the capital quickly. The redhead smiles and says he's worried about that too. While he fought, the Queen strengthened her position. Parubkov will have to try hard to defeat her. But now it is still too early to talk about the exposure of Beatrice and Matthias. First of all, the boy needs to regain his right to the throne. It is good that in this matter Carlyle has the support of the people. Asha tells the redhead to take care of himself until he moves to Pervaz. There she will no longer interfere in the affairs of the young man. Black-haired promises to do everything to ensure that he is safe. The girl hopes that she and Carlyle will spend 3 years peacefully, and then they will part just as peacefully. The young man is glad that Asha is worried about him. He asks the girl not to forget about her own safety. The black-haired man freezes in place. Will Carlyle care for her? But why does he need it? A few days later, Asha and Carlyle have to go to Pervaz today. The things with which the red-haired man promised to provide the city are already ready. There are more than 24 wagons in the royal yard. Asha is, to put it mildly, shocked by Carlyle's generosity. It is strange that the king's son, ready to choke on every penny, spends a lot of money on a foreign city. The girl is convinced that she made the right choice. If not for her marriage to Carlyle, the inhabitants of Pervaz would simply starve. The black-haired man and the boy get into the carriage. 2 hours later, the crew stops in a small town. Carlyle steps out of the carriage to greet the cheering crowd. Black-haired, observing this picture, notes that the boy is loved more than she assumed. He must have gained trust through his many battles with his enemies. The girl tells Lionel that Carlyle loves people. Is that irony? The young man's friend is surprised. Lionel says that the prince's nationality is part of the plan. The boy has to talk sweetly with ordinary people in order to win their support. Then it will be easier for him to defeat Matthias and Beatrice. After a few minutes, the red-haired man returns to the carriage. He asks Lionel where else they will need to repeat this show. In Ovendam. The man looks at the list. We'll be there in 2 days. The black-haired man does not take his reproachful gaze from Carlyle, and he feels it. The young man asks the girl what happened. It seems to Asha that the boy is not being very honest with those people. They are so sincerely happy about the arrival of the crown prince, but he only pretends that he likes communication with the people. Are you saying I shouldn't do this? The guy asks. The young man says that people love him, and he is ready to be their god. There is nothing like that here. Asha agrees with this. You don't need to look for a reason where there is none, says the girl in her mind. Evening. The crew stops near a lake. The moonlight reflects off the surface of the water. There is silence all around, only the quiet rustling of trees is heard. One of Carlyle's knights orders his friends to make a fire in order to scare away wild animals. Also, security guards must be on duty around the crew. After a few minutes, the redhead's assistants set up the tent. One of the servants tells Ash and Carlyle that he has moved the things they need there. The redhead smiles. Thanks, if I need anything, I'll call. The servant says goodbye to the couple. The girl tells the boy that the servant must have accidentally moved their belongings to the same tent. Do you really want to sleep apart from me? The red-haired man tilts his head to the side. Asha, stuttering, answers that the young man misunderstood everything a little. But Carlyle doesn't listen to her. He tells the girl not to make the servants suffer and just follow him. The boy gets up and leaves the carriage. The tent of the black-haired girl and the boy. Carlyle is standing in front of Asha in a pair of pants. The girl holds the boy's shirt in her hands. I will try to do everything right. 20 minutes ago, Asha leaves the crew. The black-haired girl is a little worried. Yes, she had to sleep next to men in war, but it was in the open air. And those men were only her brothers. What can you say about Carlisle? It's not that Asha was brought up with the same strictness as the girls in the capital, but she still can't think calmly about sleeping with a boy. The black-haired woman goes to the lake to wash herself. She scoops up water with her palms and pours it on her face. The girl promises herself that she will always protect Pervaz, even at the cost of his own life. The girl goes to the tent. Carlisle emerges from behind the tree. He watched the black-haired man all the time. The guy must admit that his wife is quite an interesting person. At least she's not like the haughty, silly girls that royals usually marry. After a few minutes, the young man returns to the tent. There he sees Asha spreading a blanket on the floor. "Are you going to sleep on the floor?" The red-haired man did not expect this. The girl says that she has no other option. Carlisle takes off his black shirt. The boy looks carefully at Asha. He wonders how a girl will react to a half-naked man in front of her. But the young man probably forgot that his wife fought side by side with men almost all her life. Black-haired calmly tells Carlisle something about cold waters, and this annoys the young man. "She looks at me like an animal and she doesn't care if I'm dressed or not." But the red-haired man himself said that they were married only on paper. So why be surprised? But now Carlisle regrets his words about the lack of romance. It's somehow not interesting at all. The young man decides to have a little fun. He smiles at the girl. Already from his sly facial expression, the black-haired man understands that something is wrong here. Carlisle asks Ash to help him put on his nightgown. The girl opens her eyes wide. The redhead's behavior is strange and completely illogical. However, Asha decides to listen to him. After all, what's the point? The girl apologizes to the boy for not thinking to help him. That's how it all happened. Asha is now carefully examining the shirt, ignoring the half-naked Carlisle. The guy smiles slyly and twinkles his eyes. But the black-haired man ignores even this provocation. The girl asks the young man to extend his hand. He fulfills her request. Asha, without touching the red-haired man, deftly puts a shirt on him. The black-haired one fastens the buttons and tells the boy that everything is ready. He is silent. "Something is wrong?" asks the girl. The young man says that everything is fine. He's just a little sad. The black-haired girl wonders why, but Carlisle does not want to answer her questions. And what to answer? The red-haired man cannot say that he wanted to play with Asha. The young man lies down on the bed and turns his back to the girl. Asha thinks that the prince's displeasure is caused by the fact that she somehow put the shirt on him wrong. Black-haired decides not to question Carlisle about anything anymore. After all, if he doesn't like something, he can just say so. Why pretend to be an offended child? The girl herself decides to go to bed. He and Carlisle would have to wake up early tomorrow. The guy says he's going to turn off the lights. Black-haired does not object. The young man casts an excited look at the girl and asks if she is comfortable. The blanket seems too thin to Carlisle. Asha just smiles at this. She slept and not in such conditions. The redhead asks the girl to tell a little about Pervaz. Parabak wants to learn something about the city in which he will live for 3 years. And it's not nice to come to someone else's land unprepared. The black-haired boy asks what exactly he is interested in. Climate, people, geographical location. "Let's start with the climate," says Carlisle. "Are winters really that cold there?" It is difficult for Asha to answer this question, because she has nothing to compare it to. During the 22 years of her life, the black-haired girl almost never left Pervaz for a long time. But according to the merchants, it is so bitterly cold there that you can freeze all parts of your body. The redhead bursts into laughter. Asha's words cheered him up. "Did you really cut off the head of the leader of the Lurs?" the boy asks as soon as he calms down. He is interested in learning something not only about Pervaz, but also about his wife. Various things were said about Asha, and the red-haired man wanted to check what was true and what was empty talk. Black-haired says in an indifferent tone that she really killed the leader of the Lurs. The young man assumes that he must have been a capable warrior. This is true, but the leader of the barbarians definitely did not reach Amir Pervaz. Asha says this with sadness in her voice. She is very sad without her father and brothers. The girl says that thanks to Amir and his sons, she managed to remove the necklace from the neck of her main enemy, which preserved his youth. This thing was the secret of the power of the leader of the Lurkians. Carlisle suggests that Amir Pervaz was a very skilled warrior. Asha says that her father was loved by all residents of Pervaz. He was the only one who did not surrender the city to the enemies. Amir fought for his motherland until his last breath. The redhead looks at the ceiling. Amir Pervaz should not have died on the battlefield, the young man says in his mind. He was a real ruler who every day chose freedom for his possessions. And his sons and daughter helped him in this. Asha became the same as her father. She is also ready to give everything for the sake of peace in her motherland. So she received a reward from the emperor for her courage and defiance of the enemy, thinks the red-haired man. Maybe this girl has surpassed her father. The boy begins to respect Asha. He likes her courage, bravery, and devotion to her people. Tell me about your brothers, Carlyle asks. How many were there? But Asha does not answer this question. Marquis Pervaz. The boy looks at the floor and sees that the black-haired man is fast asleep. Capital. One of the rooms of the royal palace. I can't do this, Matthias yells. You want me to go fight monsters instead of that douchebag Carlyle? The mere thought of battle causes fear in the baked prince. Beatrice tries to calm her son down. She puts her hand on his shoulder and says that she has already thought of everything. A few days later, Pervaz Carlyle and Ashi's carriage goes over potholes. The redhead looking out the window says the situation is worse than he expected. In Pervaza, everything is not as it should be. All the surroundings are empty fields. Yes, there is a lot of work here. Carlyle asks the black-haired man how much money he planned to get from the king. About 500,000 varins, the girl answers. The redhead snorts. He is sure that Asha named such an amount on purpose. This is catastrophically small for such a rundown city. But don't worry, you drew the best card in the deck, the young man says smugly. Asha understands that he is telling the truth. Hardly anyone would be as generous as the redhead. 15 minutes pass. The crew stops at the old Pervaz family castle. Asha gets out of the carriage first. The girl warns Carlyle that her house is not in the best shape. But the redhead doesn't care. A person who has lived on the front line for many years does not care where to sleep. Carlyle is not at all like his gentle brother, accustomed to comfort. Husband and wife approach the stairs leading to the castle. The couple is greeted by a black-haired man, one of the black-haired woman's best friends, Dakar. He bows to Asha and Carlyle. It is clear that the man is worried. He had not yet received members of the royal family in Pervaza. Asha touches Decker's shoulder to reassure her friend. Blackhair and Carlyle enter the palace. Servants and maids bow their heads to the girl and boy. Red-haired knights stand outside. Are we going to stay here? One of them says displeasedly. Asha looks around. The redhead freezes in place. He did not expect the palace knights to behave so rudely. But now is not the time for quarrels. The guy just ignores the words of his subject. Where I live, Carlyle wonders. He decided to quickly change the subject to avoid an awkward silence. The young man hopes that Asha was not too affected by the knight's words. Black-haired pretends that nothing happened. She says her assistants have prepared the entire second floor for Carlyle. The guy is somewhat surprised. The second floor in castles is where the lord lives with his family. Black-haired says that she can live on the first floor. Still, Carlyle is above her in status. Besides, he is a guest, and it is customary for guests to select the best rooms. The guy smiles. Thank you. Asha goes outside. Fussy servants carry the redhead's belongings to the second floor. Decker approaches the girl. We have arranged a new room for you. Do you want to see it? Black-haired does not object. The girl and the man return to the castle, discussing something. Carlyle notices them. For some reason, Asha's friend arouses the boy's suspicions. Asha's bedroom. There is a fluffy light carpet on the stone floor. A large double bed stands against one of the walls. Yes, the servants really tried to arrange the room. But Ashi is funny, all because of the size of her bed. Is this your doing? The girl asks one of her friends through tears. The man uncertainly says that the capital's nobles sleep on such beds. He wanted to create something similar for the marquise. The black-haired man tells the young man that he did very well. The girl smiles sadly. She notices a colossal difference between Pervaz and the capital, even in the eyes of her dear friends. This motivates the girl to work honestly for the prosperity of the city. Asha thanks her husband. The girl notices a vase with pink tulips on the bedside table. In Pervaza, flowers mean the end of war. That is why the maids prepared such a small surprise for the black-haired woman. The dark-haired woman turns to the woman in the black dress and says with a soft smile, "Good job, Dello." The woman thanks for the praise. Decker asks Asha if there is still a vacancy for a butler. Yes, the girl answers. All this time Della was doing his work. But we will definitely find someone. Della advises Asha to hire a maid to run small errands. After all, now Asha is the wife of a member of the royal family. Many people are watching her. Black Hair asks if there is anyone Della can recommend for the position. The girl is surprised when she learns that the woman has already found the right person. A cute girl with light brown hair and eyes of the same color enters the room. She smiles at Asha. Greetings, Your Grace. My name is Nina Colon. Della lists the duties of the new maid. She will clean your rooms, cook for you, help you bathe, comb your hair, and take care of your clothes. It is not usual for a black-haired woman that someone will help her take care of her own hygiene. Della says that during the war it was a luxury, but now everything will change. Asha is forced to agree with the woman. In addition, Nina gives the impression of a well-educated and hardworking girl. You can rest, says the black-haired one to his friends. Della and Derek are asked by the black-haired man to stay. When the rest of the people leave the room, the girl tells her most loyal assistants that deliveries to Pervaz will resume. Because of this, conflicts may arise between the prince's people and Asha's people. But the black-haired man is not going to ask his assistants to restrain themselves if the knights behave badly. The girl made a mutually beneficial agreement with Carlisle, not a slave contract. She will stick to this position and asks Della and Derek to do the same. The next day, Carlisle's office. The boy is talking to Lionel. The red-haired man says that he has already prepared supplies for Pervaz for next month. True, the boy is surprised that Asha's people did not put a single coin in their pockets. Lionel smiles. Those who have shared grief usually stick together. The red-haired man says in his mind that you can't tell by the appearance of the girl's assistants. The boy is especially interested in Derek. This black-haired man is always hanging around Asha, and Carlisle doesn't like it very much. Even though I'm related to the Marquise, the young man narrows his eyes. It doesn't mean she can't betray me. The red-haired man asks Lionel to carefully find out something about Asha's immediate environment. Most of all, the young man needs information about Derek. Lionel tells the barman that he has already learned something about that man. Derek is the eldest son of the Donovan family, which was a vassal of Emir Pervaz. They even wanted to marry the girl to a black-haired man. Carlisle smirks. So big and clumsy. They'd make a great couple. There are noticeable notes of jealousy in the young man's voice. At the same time in the capital, royal church. Priest Gabriel is sitting on a bench. His hands are clasped in a lock, a gentle smile plays on his face. A man prays to God. Suddenly someone enters the room. Gabriel immediately greets the guest, or rather the guest. Queen Beatrice came to the priest. The woman sits down next to Gabriel. I want to discuss something with you. It concerns the future of our kingdom. Do you have a moment? The priest says that talking to the queen is a great honor for him. I have as much time as I want for you, adds the man. But the expression on Gabriel's face does not quite match his words. A week later, Carlisle and Asha's marriage benefited Pervaz. The streets became cleaner and there were more people on them. Now Asha, as befits a good ruler, walks around the city assessing the situation. The girl meets wounded soldiers who are already undergoing treatment. They praise the black-haired woman and thank her. Asha also checks the distribution of provisions. At one of the aid stations, the girl sees Derek. He sorts grain and cereals into bags. The black-haired woman asks the man if there is enough food for all the inhabitants of the city. Yes, smiles Derek. People are happy. The girl praises her assistant. It was he who helped her distribute the provisions correctly. The black-haired man is wondering what is being distributed today. Beans, salt, flour, and yeast, says the man. Residents of Pervaz will finally be able to make bread. The public oven has already been repaired, so it is quite possible that the aroma of bread will spread throughout the neighborhood tonight. Derek scowls and tells the black-haired that tomorrow they will get the seeds. The husband and other helpers of the girl are racking their brains over how to plan the sowing. We will finally be able to grow wheat on our land, says Derek enthusiastically. I never expected to see this at my age. The black-haired man notices the glint in Derek's eyes. This shine reminds the girl that she did not fight for Pervaz in vain. Your Highness! Suddenly someone calls Asha. A dark-haired guy asks a girl to come to the workshop. It is necessary to accept wood. Take care of everything here, the black-haired man says softly to Derek. After a few minutes, the Marquis and the boy approach the workshop. Asha freezes when she sees hundreds, no, thousands of felled trees. What it is? Asks the black-haired man. The boy replies that Prince Carlisle bought all the surplus wood from the inhabitants of the northern villages, and the imported trees were made fire-resistant. There is only one question in the head of the black-haired woman. When did he manage to bring all this here? After arriving in Pervaz, Carlisle had no time to deal with the organization of wood supplies. Did he agree on everything in the capital? Black-haired once again looks around the yard of the workshop covered with trees. If he made my dreams come true, I'm ready to do anything for him. One of the prince's men approaches the marquise. His Highness wants to see you. Asha replies that she will come to Carlisle's office in a few minutes. The black-haired one knocks on the door and enters the room that the servants have set up for the prince's work. The guy greets the girl. The black-haired one bows to him. You called me. The young man asks Asha what the situation is in Pervaza now. The girl says that thanks to the prince's generosity, everything in the city is even better than she dreamed. Marquise thanks her husband. Carlisle called the black-haired man for a reason. The prince wants to test her honesty. He provided a lot of money and goods for Pervaz, but he does not know how they were used. And, sorry, exclaims the black-haired man, I should have informed you in advance. The girl says that she will show the prince a report on the allocation of the budget. Just wait a minute. Asha is already going to leave the room. The papers are left in my room. Carlisle is surprised at such promptness. He wants to stop the girl, but she no longer hears. Lionel huffs and tells the prince that he has no reason to suspect Asha of dishonesty. Marquisa is not one of those people who would begin to appropriate money. Carlisle leans back on his throne. Is that even possible? She could take as much as she wanted, and it would not be a violation of the law. Misappropriation of public funds is a very common practice in the Kingdom of Chad. The redhead simply cannot believe that Asha is different from the other rulers. The fact that the girl has already made a budget plan speaks of her care, but the redhead is convinced that there are certain inaccuracies in her plans. Lionel shakes his head. The prince is still stubborn. He is forever looking for some reason in everything. Although for a man of war, this is not surprising. A gasping Asha bursts into the office. She has several notebooks and a roll of paper in her hands. Black-haired lays it all on the prince's table. Here is the plan for using the materials you have given us. I also brought plans for the distribution of food and medicine. The guy starts looking through notebooks and mentally counting expenses. Surprisingly, the results of his calculations coincide with the results of Asha's calculations. The girl really didn't take a penny. In addition, the report is simply perfectly structured. Great work, says red-haired Ashi, but the verification is not yet complete. The young man asks the black-haired woman whether she has signed any of the money or materials provided by him in her own name. The girl says that she does not understand what it is about. I'm talking about money for your treasury, the red-haired man says loudly. It seems to him that Asha is only pretending to be an honest person. However, Carlisle is wrong again. Black-haired asks him how replenishing the treasury will help rebuild Pervaz. Besides, it is not very right to shove public money into one's pocket. Do you already know what you're going to do with the necklace and wedding ring I gave you? The red-haired man still does not lose hope of catching his wife in some dark business. She can't be that perfect. But the girl has an answer to this question as well. The black-haired one smiles and says that he is going to sell the jewelry at the auction. But she will do it after the divorce, so that stupid rumors do not spread through the kingdom. With the money earned, the girl wants to buy a herd of war horses. Carlisle sighs. He is forced to admit his defeat. Asha Pervaz is truly an incredibly honest ruler. The boy tells the girl that she can be free. He already found out everything he wanted. Asha bows to the young man and leaves the room. God! Carlisle taps his fingers to a rhythm on his desk. She's even figured out what she's going to do with the money from the jewelry sale. Are you disappointed? Lionel asks with surprise in his voice. He does not understand what caused the mood of the prince. However, it turned out exactly as Carlisle wanted. Asha does not interfere in his personal affairs and properly disposes of the allocated money. Olish, says the young man. Better tell me, what is the situation in the royal palace? Church. The priest and Beatrice are facing each other. They just finished praying to God. Gabriel says that Beatrice can start the story of what happened. Just be honest, please, says the priest. The queen says that if Carlisle becomes king, the kingdom will have a dark future. A boy who has been killing people since childhood will not be able to become a good and generous ruler. Gabriel mouth. He feels some feigned pity in Beatrice's tone. The queen did not listen to his pleas for sincerity. But the man does not talk about it. Now is not the time to spoil the relationship with Beatrice. Instead, Gabriel agrees with the woman. For example, the military ruler will distance the inhabitants of the kingdom from God's word. The queen folds her hands in prayer and asks Gabriel to stop it. The woman wants the priest to help her son Matthias become the next king. Gabriel says that in return the queen must promise something. So what? It seems that Beatrice is ready to do anything to make the priest her ally. Gabriel lowers his eyes. If Matthias takes the throne, Chad must become a sacred state. The queen is somewhat surprised by such a demand. The woman asks what sacred state means. Gabriel smiles out of the corner of his mouth. This is life according to Allah's laws. The queen says that she also believes in the correctness of obedience to the word of God. However, the woman is in no hurry to agree to Gabriel's proposal. Beatrice needs to think things through. The queen walks to the exit of the church. I will wait for you. The priest smiles. As soon as the door closes behind the woman, the friendliness disappears from Gabriel's face. Summer Pervaz. Carlisle and Lionel fight on swords. The redhead wins. He tells his friend not to be upset. According to the boy's observations, Lionel is getting better every time. The man says that everything is fine. He doesn't even dare to think about defeating Carlisle, a man blessed by the god of war. That's good. The young man puts his hand on his friend's shoulder. Although Pervaz is known for its harsh weather conditions, in summer it is quite hot here, as in other cities of the kingdom. The redhead takes off his shirt and washes himself with cold water. Lionel says that the marquise is working on the revival of agriculture in the region. Carlisle smiles. Yes, she was very excited to plant the plants. The red-haired man asks the man if they have already sorted out the things they brought from the capital. Almost, Lionel bows. He is surprised that Carlisle is so interested in the affairs of Pervaza, and the redhead gets along quite well with his wife. Sometimes he even speaks of her with some warmth. But maybe it's only for the better. If a member of the royal family and the mistress of Pervazu unite, they will be able to deprive Matthias of the right to the throne. However, the problem is that the prince's people do not accept Pervaz. Lionel says that the attitude of Carlisle's servants towards the townspeople may have upset the marquis. The redhead says it can't be. He forbade his people to go beyond the second floor. The boy says in a displeased tone that Lionel should keep an eye on the local aristocrats. If you don't pay attention to them, you can miss something important. The man says that he understood everything. Lionel looks away from the prince. Well, I'll tell him next time. A few hours later, Pervaz Castle. Two maids are walking down the corridor. A stranger from the palace and Nina. The latter accidentally pushes the royal maid. Do you even look where you're going? The girl from the palace crosses her arms on her chest. She tells Nina that she should respect those higher in rank. Wasn't this taught in Pervaz? Carlisle's maid adds sarcastically. She points her finger at Nina. The girl from the palace thinks that the prince's maid is higher in status than the marquise's maid. Should I explain why your action offended me? Carlisle's maid lifts her chin. Nina bows to the girl and apologizes. She says that she did not know about such a hierarchy. The redhead's maid walks past Nina. Be more careful. Although what can you expect from a marquise's servant? The girl says that Nina is as rude and ill-mannered as the black-haired one. Maid Ashi clenches her hands into fists. How can she insult my lady? Says the girl in her mind. The marquise put an end to the terrible war with the barbarians and became the heroine of Pervaz. And now the brave girl is working day and night to restore the city. How could some girl from the palace talk about her like that? Nina begins to cry out of resentment for her mistress. Della notices the girl. The older maid is excited. She had never seen the cheerful Nina cry. So, something serious happened. The woman asks the girl what is the matter. Nina, sobbing, says that the servant of His Highness called the marquise rude and ill-mannered. Della sighs. She assumed that Carlisle's servants would behave very rudely in Pervaza. They consider local residents, including the marquise, to be savages. In order for the prince's servants to finally start respecting the black-haired girl, her people need to try. Della puts her hands on Nina's shoulders and smiles. We're going to raise our lady status. Derek's office. Della enters the room. The black-haired man greets the woman and asks what happened. Usually the maids solve all the issues among themselves. I learned that the servants of His Highness insulted Our Lady at Nina's, says the woman. The rudeness of people from the palace knows no boundaries. Something must be done to avoid serious clashes. Derek clenches his hands into fists in rage. He knew, of course, that the people of Carlisle hated Pervaz with all their hearts. But to humiliate the girl who saved almost the entire kingdom, this is unheard of audacity. Derek says he will discuss the behavior of the prince's servants with the Marchioness. Della thinks this is not a good idea. The lady may get upset. It is better to contact Carlisle directly. But the man does not really trust the prince. Derek decides to tell the Marquise all the same. Several hours pass. Carlisle's office. The guy works with papers. One of the servants tells the young man that the Marquise has arrived. The girl enters the room. The red-haired man turns his head in the direction of his wife. "You are very timely. I need to tell you something." But the young man falls silent when he sees the expression on Asha's face. The black-haired woman is outraged by something. Her hands are clenched into fists. It seems that a second, and the girl will explode with anger. The boy had never seen Asha so angry. He carefully asks her what happened. "I have a business for you, Your Grace," the girl says coldly. Carlisle says, listening to the girl carefully. Asha asks the young man to talk to the people he brought from the capital. The servants of the prince constantly quarrel with the servants of the Marquise. The black-haired man hoped that Carlisle would deal with this to avoid future problems. The redhead puts his hand on the papers and sighs. Every day, Asha surprises him more and more. The girl is insulted and she worries about her servants. No aristocrat the redhead knew did that. Carlisle decides to play with Asha a little. He smiles at the girl and gently says that perhaps the conflicts between the servants are a misunderstanding. Lionel is about to say something but doesn't have time. Asha reminds the prince about the contract they signed a few months ago. The black-haired woman's voice has palpable notes of steel. But Carlisle is not afraid of this. He calmly replies that he fulfills all the terms of the agreement. Pervaz was provided with food, medicines, and wood. Asha asks Lionel to bring the contract. A moment later, the required sheet of paper is already lying on his lordship's table. Asha pushes the contract to the prince. "Before asking you for financial assistance, I set several requirements. And among these demands is respect for the residents of Pervaz. Although the prince and his servants are respectable people, it should not be forgotten that they are only guests in the city of Asha, and guests must observe elementary rules of behavior." Blackhaired says that if the inhabitants of Pervaz change their attitude towards the prince, he will not achieve his desired goal. Carlisle blinks and asks what will happen if he ignores the black-haired woman's warning. The guy is playing with fire and knows it very well. But when the girl answers in an icy tone that Carlisle had better listen to her, the redhead decides to stop the game. The boy asks Lionel to bring all the servants who have come from the capital. Carlisle wants to have a serious talk with them and punish the culprits. The redhead's friend leaves the room. An hour later, the main hall of the castle. Asha, Lionel, and Carlisle are standing on the stairs. The prince's servants and maids, his knights, gathered below. While they do not know why the young master called them, but from the expression on Carlisle's face, the people of the palace guess that the boy will say not very pleasant things. Lionel, unlike his friend, smiles faintly. The man is glad that the daredevils will finally get what they deserve. As for Asha, the girl keeps a cold calm. Finally, Carlisle begins to speak. "I heard that someone in the audience insulted my wife." "Is that right, Asha?" asks the young man. The girl opens her eyes wide in surprise. Carlisle never addressed her by name, but also universally. But the girl quickly guesses that the guy did it for a reason. He called the black-haired woman's name to show his subjects that he recognized her as his wife. Such a man's behavior should increase Asha's authority in the eyes of people from the capital. The black-haired one says out loud that she was indeed insulted by someone on the Carlisle staff. Those who serve in the Pervaz castle gave evidence. Carlisle says that Asha's maids must remember people's faces, how they insulted their lady. The guy asks them to point out the culprits. Several maids immediately point their fingers at two girls in white aprons. They are indignant. "We didn't do anything. This is slander." But Carlisle doesn't listen. He orders them to come forward. One of the maids says that she did not say anything bad about the Marquise. "She's just trying to survive us," exclaims the girl. Asha freezes in place from such audacity. Carlisle just grunts. Lionel's words about the unsatisfactory behavior of the people from the palace turned out to be true. The maid opens her eyes wide. She realizes what she just said. Carlyle crosses his arms over his chest and says coldly, "Repeat what you called my wife?" Asha casts a surprised look at the boy. The girl did not think that Carlyle would protect her so much. The maid lowers her head and answers in a trembling voice, "Marquise, your grace. Is that something offensive?" Carlyle smiles. Only he, her legal husband, can call Asha that way. To all other black-haired women, her highness is a princess, and it is not discussed. Red-haired turns to his friend. "Lionel, punish the guilty for treating their lady with contempt." The man is surprised by Carlyle's strictness. After moving to Pervaz, the boy behaved like a cheerful, carefree young man. He fought with swords, fooled around, walked around town, and sometimes played pranks on his wife. But now he turned on the hard ruler. Too hard. If everyone who insulted Asha is punished, the prince will have few people left. Carlyle admits that Lionel is right. "Then," the lad's eyes flashed with an unkind light, "just cut out their tongues." There is dead silence in the hall for a moment. No one expected this from the red-haired man. People think that the young man was just joking, but his face is surprisingly serious. The servants beg the boy to take pity on them. They promise that no more bad words will be said about Asha or Pervaz. The redhead is silent. Asha decides to intervene because she understands that if she does nothing, this story will end badly. The girl puts her hand to her forehead and asks the prince to stop. "Asha." He does not understand what is the matter. Black-haired says that the guilty should not be punished in this way. "Do you want more?" suggests the prince. Asha says that her only wish is for the servants to respect each other. And that's all. One of Carlyle's maids drops to her knees and begins to sob in fear. Asha feels sorry for the girl, even though she offended her. However, Carlyle sees no cause for pity. Servants have done badly and must be punished for their behavior. Asha sighs. "Even I sometimes have doubts that the role of a princess suits me," admits the black-haired woman. "I'm sure your people also have such thoughts." In addition, Pervaza currently lacks hands. What will the prince do while his subjects recover from the punishment? Carlyle asks what to do then. Asha directs her gaze at the culprits and calmly but firmly says, "Life in this city isn't the best, but while you're here we have to support each other. Even if there is a conflict, you should try to understand the opponent, and for this you need to respect your neighbors." Asha understands that Pervaz is harsh for the people of the capital, but this city protects the borders. The inhabitants of Pervaz risk their lives to prevent the barbarians from advancing deep into the kingdom. "Don't insult my people. That's all I want to ask of you," says Asha. Carlyle smiles. He is proud of his wife's behavior. Instead of shouting and blaming everyone around her, she understood the situation and resolved the conflict peacefully. The ability to negotiate is a talent important to any ruler. The servants bow to the girl. "Thank you, Your Highness Princess." Carlyle, who wants to frighten the servants a little more, tells them to behave politely. If one of them dares to offend a resident of Pervaza again, Asha will not be so generous. The black-haired woman is about to leave the hall when the boy stops her. He smiles at the girl and invites her to have dinner together to celebrate the truce. Asha asks what kind of truce we could be talking about if there was no battle. She walks towards the exit of the hall, leaving Carlyle alone with the servants. It seems that the black-haired one is not in a very good mood. The guy scratches the back of his head. "What do I have to say, Grandpa, to get her to agree to have dinner with me?" Carlyle can't just ask Asha to go to dinner because of his pride. The capital, the church. Beatrice again came to the priest Gabriel. The woman decided to accept his offer regarding the sacred empire. The man is smiling. He says the queen made the right choice. Beatrice wants to ask Gabriel for advice. Carlyle went to Pervaz. "Invading the city is very difficult. How should we be?" The priest smiles slyly and says in the tone of a great connoisseur that the redhead is trying to protect his most powerful weapon. But God Lovato watches his subjects and helps them, so the queen will still have an opportunity to harm Carlyle. The woman is interested in how exactly. "Oh, don't worry." The priest puts his hand to his chest. "You'll understand when the time comes." The queen smiles. In her eyes, the hope of gaining power appears. Beginning of September, Pervaz. The field, which only half a year ago resembled a desert, is now sown with wheat. People collect ears of corn in small baskets. Suddenly, the workers notice dark clouds approaching Pervaz. The last time this happened was 28 years ago, when war broke out in the city. A gray-haired man in a straw hat shouts to other people to hide in caves. He himself is going to the marquise to tell her about the sudden attack of the barbarians. Pervaz Castle. Carlisle's office. The redhead looks out the window. In general, this city seems more stable to me now than when I first arrived. The young man suggests that maybe Asha and her assistants should stop handing out supplies. Most people already have a job and can buy the necessary products with money. Lionel, who is sorting through the letters, tells his friend that Asha herself knows what to do with provisions. If a girl gives it to people for free, then so be it. In general, the marquise manages Pervaz very well, and Carlisle can't help but agree with that. During these 6 months of living in the city, the boy also changed his attitude towards Asha's environment, in particular, towards Derek. The young man is surprised by the diligence and intelligence of this black-haired man. Lionel says that all the inhabitants of Pervaz are amazing. In some sense, they are more active than the people of the capital. All the rumors about Pervaz, which spread throughout the kingdom, turned out to be just fiction. This small town has a faith and loyalty that cannot be found almost anywhere else. Lionel hands Carlisle one of the letters. This is from the Earl's family. The redhead smiles as he finishes reading. He says that the Count sent proof of his loyalty to Pervez. It seems that this man expects that in 3 years Carlisle will indeed divorce his wife. The Count wants to marry his daughter Cecilia to a red-haired man. Lionel says he wouldn't be surprised if the redhead himself is in love with this smart and ambitious girl. Carlisle is indignant. Why did you decide that? Lionel replies that it's all because of balls where the guy danced only with Cecilia. Carlisle says that dancing is not proof of love. He spent time with the Count's daughter because the situation demanded it. The young man is sure that Cecilia does not feel anything for him either. All she needs is my title. The red-haired man crosses his arms on his chest. He is amused by Lionel's naivety. It is surprising that this aristocrat knows nothing about formal relationships or relationships for the sake of gain. But the red-haired man is not going to explain all this to him. The young man does not want to talk about Cecilia. Suddenly, Carlisle and Lionel hear someone shouting from the street. "We're under attack! We are evacuating!" The redhead reacts to this calmly. For a man who has spent most of his life on the battlefield, news of an attack is not unusual. Asha's room. The black-haired man had already been informed about the attack. She discusses the plan of action with Decker. After the end of the war, the size of the army was reduced, and the remaining weapons became obsolete. The black-haired man suggests that the girl turn to Carlisle for help. The prince must know exactly what to do. After all, he is also an experienced military man. That girl doesn't want to do that. She believes that it is necessary to act strategically. Most likely Pervaz was attacked by a small group of barbarians. The black-haired woman can handle them herself. She wants to leave her husband in the city for an older one. Those close to the black-haired woman must obey all the boy's orders. The girl says that she will set off as soon as she tells His Highness about the expedition. A few minutes later, the Marquise enters Carlisle's office. The guy greets the black-haired one and with a smile on his face asks what happened. The girl is a little annoyed by the red-haired man's behavior. Asha is sure that he already knows about the barbarian attack. Why pretend to be a blind and deaf fool? But the black-haired man does not show his displeasure. Now is not the time for that. The girl says that Pervaz was attacked by the Graham tribe. The guy asks if he can help the girl with anything. The black-haired woman says she has one request for her husband. If I die, Asha lowers her eyes, become Margrave of Pervez. Still, you've done a lot for this city. Carlisle agrees to do so. True, the boy does not take Asha's words about death seriously. He decides to make fun of the girl, which is in his style. You don't want to ask anything more? He says. Asha accepts these taunts. If you marry another woman and have children, make one of them the ruler of Pervaz. Carlisle is unhappy with the girl's acting. Somehow not romantic. The guy gets up. He wants to show his wife how to pretend to be a couple in love. The young man approaches Asha and touches her forehead with his lips. The girl opens her eyes wide. She hadn't expected this from Carlisle. The boy smiles. May Agaris bless you. Black-haired leaves the castle. Outside, she and her army are preparing for battle, leading horses, polishing swords and shields, putting on armor. After a few minutes, the defenders of Pervaz set out on the road. Carlisle, watching his wife from the window, takes out a pair of binoculars from a desk drawer. The guy wants to see what the black-haired girl is like in battle. He smiles. Should be fun. But the young man quickly changes his mind when he sees Asha rushing towards the enemy army all by herself. She left all her warriors behind. "Idiot!" Carlyle exclaims. He does not understand the logic of the black-haired woman's actions. How a commander can go on the offensive, even without help. This is a very big and unjustified risk. Lionel asks the redhead if it would be better to send knights to help the girl. Although there are not many barbarians, but knowing Asha's desperation, this skirmish could end tragically. But Carlyle does not share his friend's opinion. Black-haired is unlikely to accept the help of knights from the palace. She does not trust them. The guy decides to wait a little longer. The next moment, he sees Asha beheading the head of the enemy tribe. The girl does it in one easy movement honed to perfection. "Following!" exclaims the black-haired man. She lets her enemies know that competing with her is pointless. Nevertheless, there are brave people who want to test their strength. The same thing happens to them as to their leader. The black-haired woman, whose clothes are stained with someone else's blood, smiles. It may seem strange, but now Asha feels happy. She is in her element, elements of battle. Carlyle says his wife is crazy. The years spent in the war made Asha a cold-blooded warrior who is not afraid of anything. The redhead is forced to admit that the girl is an excellent strategist. Her tactics for fighting enemies are dangerous, but effective. The boy has no doubts that it was Asha who killed the leader of the Lur tribe. The young man smiles. Now he wants more than anything to leave this cold castle and destroy the barbarians side by side with his incredible wife. Carlyle understands why Asha didn't call him with her. The girl wanted to demonstrate her fighting skills to the boy, and she managed to impress the redhead. Suddenly, the boy notices another detachment of enemy troops moving in the direction of Pervaz. It seems to Lionel that the situation is starting to get out of control. The prince played. It is time for him to understand that the battle with the enemy tribe is not a game. Asha is certainly a talented commander, but right now Pervaz doesn't have enough warriors to overcome Graham's 2 raids. If the girl's army falls, the aliens will invade the city and destroy everything that the redhead and Asha have been working on. The young man, who still manages to remain calm, says that the time has indeed come. Carlyle waves his hand solemnly. "Prepare our knights. Let them destroy these vile rats now." Dionel puts his hand to his chest and bows to the prince. "I obey." The man leaves the room. Carlyle contemplates joining his wife. After all, one more professional soldier won't hurt Pervaz. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Asha notices a second detachment of enemy troops moving from the side of the mountains. The girl is shocked. She did not expect that the enemies would be able to cross Mount Cruz. The black-haired man tries to pull himself together. Now she must do everything so that the enemy troops do not get directly to the city. "Don't let them get here, Derek," Asha shouts. A good plan to fight the barbarians appeared in the girl's head. It consists in the fact that Derek, Daniello, and 100 other soldiers will go to meet the second squad to surprise the enemy. But there is one problem. As we already know, Pervaz has very few soldiers. If they split, the barbarians will quickly destroy them because they are superior in manpower. Suddenly, one of Pervaz's soldiers shouts that help has arrived. Blackhair and Derek look around. They see an echelon of knights, at the head of which is Prince Carlyle. Asha, despite her surprise, does not ask the redhead about anything. This is not the time to be distracted. The girl tells Derek that His Highness will deal with the detachment on Mount Cruz. Pervaz's army will remain in this place. The black-haired man begins to chop off the heads of his enemies. One of the barbarians understands that everything has not turned out in his favor. He orders the Grahams to retreat. Asha watches with wide eyes as the barbarians leave the outskirts of the city with cries of frustration. Pervaz was able to repel the enemy in a few hours. And all thanks to His Highness. This night, the wounded are being treated in Pervaz Castle. People are tired but happy. Pervaz lost much less than he could have. Asha wants to see her husband. Derek says he was glad to see the redhead on the battlefield. But now the man is worried for some reason. Carlyle's nobility seems to him ostentatious and suspicious. Why did the prince risk his knights for Pervaz? In the contract that the boy and Asha signed, there was not a single word about military assistance. Asha smiles softly. The girl is touched by Derek's concern for her and Pervaz, but the prince still needs to be thanked. The black-haired woman tells the man that everything will be fine and leaves him alone. A minute later, Asha enters the red-haired man's room. A guy with his arms crossed on his chest is sitting on the couch. "Finally, you're here!" Looks like he was waiting for Asha. Carlisle says the girl can sit down. But the black-haired woman refuses. She wasn't going to stay long. Asha came only to express her gratitude to the prince. The boy doesn't like it very much. "You are ready to leave immediately after the words of gratitude," he says coldly. "Am I so disgusting to you that you can't spend even a little time with me?" Asha replies that this is not the case at all. The black-haired woman did not do very well, showing her distrust of the boy. And he's probably upset about it. The sooner Asha apologizes and thanks for the help, the better. Carlisle says there's no need to rush. It's even more interesting. The young man smiles and pours Asha a cup of tea. "I know that you have a lot of trouble, but maybe you will still find a moment for me." The red-haired man hopes that Asha will not refuse him. Fortunately for the boy, the black-haired girl doesn't mind a cup of tea at all. Before sitting down, the girl bows to the prince. The young man says that they don't need to be so formal with each other. The black-haired woman sits down on the sofa and takes a sip of fragrant tea. The redhead asks the girl if she is angry with him. Asha freezes in place. "What? Am I angry? You're joking?" The girl does not understand why she should be angry with the redhead. However, it should be the other way around. It was Asha who offended him with her mistrust. The boy says in a serious tone that he intervened in the fight, although the black-haired girl did not ask for help. The girl takes a sip of tea. "Oh, that's what he's talking about." Asha says that the young man has not done anything wrong. He saved Pervzaz from the fierce barbarians. The girl lowers her head. "I behaved excessively. If you, Your Highness, had not brought the knights in time, we would have lost many people." "In that case," Asha continues, "I would blame myself to death for not turning to you for help. If, of course, she herself survived." Carlisle asks the black-haired man if she is ready to die on the battlefield at any moment. This question seems strange to the girl. Is there a warrior who does not think about death during the battle? "Yes," says the redhead, "I am." He really never thought about dying in war. Perhaps it is normal for a person blessed by God. But everything is different in Asha, and the boy noticed it. "Tell me." He directs a careful look at the girl. "Were you joking when you asked me to make one of my children the ruler of Pervaz?" Black-haired replies that although her tone may have seemed sarcastic to the prince, she was completely serious. The young man is surprised. He takes a sip of tea. Carlisle did not expect that a person who is ready to give everything for the sake of his city would not want his descendants to be its next ruler. The girl says that it is not necessary. She wanted to sneeze on blood ties. For her, it is only important that Pervaz is in the hands of a responsible and honest person. Carlisle thinks, "You became famous because of the death of your father and brothers." The young man asks if he will honestly give this glory to an impostor. Asha is indignant. "Allow me. The title of ruler is not an heirloom that passes from father to his children." Carlisle quietly says that's not what he meant. It's just that other cities of the empire live according to this system. And it is strange for the boy to imagine that Pervaz will be ruled by someone not from Amir's family. Black Hair says that her family had to rule this city for several reasons. Firstly, the king decided so, and secondly, none of the aristocrats wanted to come here. Most people considered Pervaz a city of savages, where life was a punishment. But the inhabitants of the city are not at all as they are said to be. Carlisle agrees. The guy admits that Pervaz exceeded his expectations. The red-haired man was especially impressed by the skill of the local soldiers. During the battle, they acted harmoniously and efficiently. Asha smiles from the corner of her mouth. The girl is satisfied that Pervaz's army managed to impress the prince. Carlisle smiles back at the black-haired girl. For several seconds, the Marquis and the red-haired man look at each other in silence. Asha decides that the perfect moment to thank has come. "You saved me from trouble. I am grateful to you for this." The black-haired woman's pleasant words to Carlisle. In general, the boy really likes this evening. The young man was finally able to talk normally with his wife. Asha turned out to be quite an interesting interlocutor. But it is not necessary for her to know about it. The young man says in a haughty tone that his act was completely logical. If Pervaz's army was destroyed, then the prince would have problems. The guy asks if Asha wants to say anything else. "No, and you are Your Highness?" The girl directs an expectant look at the young man. She hopes Carlisle will thank her too, but the redhead says that he has already talked to Asha about everything he wanted. The girl is disappointed but does not show it. She gets up, bows to the prince and leaves the room. A few days later, Imperial Palace, one of the rooms. The queen sits on a chair and reads a letter from the barbarians. Matthias stands next to his mother, waiting for her to say something. The queen tells her son about the barbarian attack on the land of Pervaz. "How is this possible? I heard that all the foreigners were destroyed," says the blonde. Beatrice smiles gently. The queen is moved by her son's ignorance of state affairs. He is still such a child. The woman says that during the Great War, the residents of Pervaz destroyed the Lur tribe. This time the city was attacked by thunder. The guy says that all barbarians are the same. And yet, Beatrice smiles, we should be grateful to them. Matthias excitedly asks, why? Did they win? The woman replies that unfortunately the raid was not a failure. The Knights of Carlisle helped the Marquis. Matthias huffs and puffs. Then why thank these barbarians? Beatrice asks Chin why he is so nervous. Are you serious? Matthias does not hold back. They are unpredictable. If there are monsters, I'll have to go there. The boy says that it is necessary to urgently take Carlisle out of Pervaz. Someone has to scare away the monsters. The queen stands up and tells Matthias not to worry. She has already thought of everything. We will start a war again in Pervaz. The woman smiles ominously. Constant attacks by barbarian tribes on the city will tire Carlisle. Then he'll have to go back to the capital, Matthias exclaims happily. The queen says that this is a good scenario for the development of events. True, it would have been better if the red-haired man had been killed by a barbarian arrow. From the mother's words, orphans appear on the fair-haired man's skin. It seems the blonde doesn't want Carlisle to die. Because again, who will go on military campaigns? Beatrice puts her hands on her son's shoulders. Don't be afraid, dear. If Carlisle dies, you won't be sent to fight monsters, because you will be the only heir to the throne. A king would not risk his offspring like that. But the crown prince must have military experience. The blonde tries to deny. The queen says that everything will depend on the word of Matthias. The woman wants to get rid of the king himself before he, having fun with his mistress, has produced another child. But Beatrice will deal with her beloved husband later. Now the main thing is Carlisle. The queen shows her son a letter. Society is starting to pay attention to you, Matthias. We need to continue erasing your brother's tracks. True, it requires certain investments. Bilyavai reads the letter. We will provide the Graham tribe with weapons for the war with Pervaz, but barbarians don't have to win battles. The queen folds a piece of paper. That's right, son. The main thing is that the war lasts as long as possible. Let's test Carlisle's stamina. The woman also says that the priest Gabriel will go with them. Temple. Gabriel had just finished reading a letter from the queen. The man is smiling. He is happy with the way things are going. So far, everything is in his favor. The fair-haired man is heading to the meeting hall of the clergy. 8 men sit at a long oak table. One of them stands up to greet Gabriel. This dark-haired man with green eyes is the secretary of the Golden Branch Society. He apologizes to the priest for suddenly changing the meeting place. But Gabriel is not angry. Is it your fault? The dark-haired man falls silent. The high priest goes deep into the hall. He says that all inconveniences were created by the temple leadership, which compromised with secular society. Other clerics support Gabriel. We did not distort the word of God. We must obey the laws written in the holy books, but the state teaches us as heretics. Gabriel pushes his chair back. The man is glad that the priests are on his side, so it will be easier for him to achieve his goal. Livata will protect us, says the fair-haired man. Morning, Pervaza Castle. Asha walks down the hall to Carlisle's office. The prince called her. Only the girl does not understand why. They discussed everything as if yesterday. A black-haired woman enters the room. Carlisle in a white and red suit is already waiting for Asha there. The young man smiles charmingly. Good morning, Marquis. The guy tells the black-haired girl that he called her so that they could spend time together. We don't do it often enough for husband and wife. Don't you think so? Adds the young man. No, replies the black-haired man. But if you so wish, I don't mind staying with you. It seems to the girl that Carlisle is up to something, and this worries Asha. The Marquise shares her experiences with the redhead. The boy says that he is not working on a conspiracy against Asha and Pervaz. He just wants to have a normal conversation with his wife. Where does such enthusiasm come from, Your Grace? Asha is interested. You yourself wanted a marriage without obligations. Carlisle says he worries about what people think. They will definitely spread stupid rumors about the personal life of the Marquise and the Prince, who see each other once a week. Black Hair admits that Carlisle is right. They really should get to know each other better. The red-haired man asks the girl to give him a tour of the castle. With pleasure, Your Grace. Asha smiles. The girl decides to start with the floor where Carlisle and his subjects live. The red-haired man says that not long ago there was no furniture here. The black-haired man freezes in place. Now she understands why the prince's servants were so shocked when they arrived here. Anyone would be surprised to see that there is no furniture in the Marquise's house. But there is a reason for this. Asha says that she could not take care of the castle because of the war. She had to either sell all the furniture or use it for firewood to survive the winter. Carlisle is ashamed of his outrage. The young man decides to change the subject. They say the Lur tribe had 20 times more warriors than you. Asha says that this is not completely accurate information. If I'm not mistaken, 50 times. They attacked again and again and my father stopped them, adds the black-haired man with sadness and at the same time pride in his voice. The girl does not want to offend Carlisle, but it seems to her that Amir Pervaz was a warrior from God. The redhead says he doesn't mind it. The guy puts his hand on the Marquise's shoulder. You may not believe me, but honestly I respect your father as a knight. I am very sorry that the king treated him like that. Carlisle turns his back on Asha and walks down the hall. The boy notices that there is no picture on the walls. Why so? Asks red-haired Ashu. The black-haired man replies that the damned war is to blame for everything again. The inhabitants of the city had absolutely no time for drawing. Someone was fighting, and someone was hiding from enemy arrows. But now everything has changed, says the red-haired man. And whether you like it or not, we will have to make a family portrait and hang it on one of the walls. The girl doesn't understand why she and Carlisle have a portrait if they're going to break up in less than 3 years. The young man smiles. Why not? So that you don't forget me. Capital. Hall for clergy meetings. The blue-haired man says that it is impolite to take time from a busy person, so the priests should hurry and start the meeting. It has been half a year since His Highness Carlisle went to Pervaz. The clergy are wondering if it is time to do something. After all, the elder prince is a person who was born with the blessing of God, but does not live according to his principles. Gabriel says with indignation in his voice that the redhead is behaving in an unacceptable manner. He walks too much, communicates arrogantly with other people, and at the same time waits for his father's mercy. His Highness has many sins. Gabriel lowers his head, but Carlisle Evaristo is not the only heathen in this state. Royal nobles are basically rude and dirty scum who do not consider the common people as people. Gabriel learned the cruelty of the royal family firsthand. Since childhood, he was insulted and beaten. The blonde found his salvation in religion, because everyone is equal before God. At the age of 12, Gabriel began to study God's word. The boy spent day and night reading sacred books, reading every word. Don't divide people by status. He remembered it best. The blonde smiles at his colleagues and says that they don't have time to list all the sins of His Highness Carlisle. We are going to create a holy empire, adds the man. To do this, you need to help a prince who shares their aspirations. The priests do everything in their power to make Matthias the next king. Those present in the hall agree with the chief priest. The only question is how exactly they can help the younger prince. Gabriel says there is one way. While Matthias works on his reputation, the church has to change people's opinion about the redhead. A few days later, the carriage of the Dupuy family goes to Pervazam. Countess Cecilia is displeased. She does not like the quality of the roads in Pervaza. If the carriage had not been so well made, says the girl, I would have been in trouble a long time ago. The blonde asks herself why she is taking such a risk. 1 month ago, Dupit House. The blonde boy says that Cecilia should not go to Pervez. This young man is Elon Dupay, Cecilia's older brother. He crosses his arms over his chest. I don't think you will be happy there. There is no concept of a social circle in Pervaza. But Cecilia goes to the northern town for a reason. Above all, the girl aspires to become a crown princess. To do this, she needs to marry Carlisle. When he breaks up with the Marquise, the blonde will have a chance to become his bride. The girl tells her brother that she will go to Pervaz for the title. Another of Cecilia's older brothers, Dylan Dupay, says it's foolish. Why would a girl try to hook up with a married Carlisle when there's Matthias? It is the blonde who is now the first in line for the throne, But the blonde thinks that it won't last long. It seems to the Countess that the redhead is stronger than his younger brother. Pervaz Castle. Carlyle's office. The Viscount enters the room and bows to the boy. Your Highness, do you remember that the House of Dupay wrote about its intentions to prove its loyalty to you? The redhead says that he remembers something like that. The Viscount says in a somewhat displeased tone that proof of the Earl's family's loyalty has just arrived at the castle. Carlyle already wants to see what the Dupays have sent him. How surprised the boy is when Cecilia enters the office. The girl bows. May the glory of God be with you. The blonde approaches Carlyle's desk. The Countess smiles at the prince and says that she is honored to see him. The young man silently stares at the blonde. A minute later, the girl tells the prince that she has come to help him. What exactly? Asks the young man. The blonde says that she is one of the most talented employees of Swallow's Nest. This is the largest training center in the entire western region of the kingdom, and the fastest way to gather news from all corners of Chad and beyond. The girl leads to the fact that while Carlyle is here, it may be difficult for him to follow the course of events in the capital. Cecilia is ready to inform the prince about everything that is happening. The blonde already knows that stupid rumors about the redhead are spreading through the capital. People compare him to Prince Matthias and unfortunately prefer the latter. People believe that Carlyle wanted to kill his scholarly brother out of jealousy. The eldest prince's reputation is tarnished by Ella's priests. The redhead frowns. He knew that the church was somehow involved in this. Cecilia says the queen has recently appointed several priests to leadership positions, but Beatrice respects Gabriel Knox the most. The prince thanks the blonde for such valuable information for him. The girl bows to Carlyle. My house will support you in any situation. Carlyle stands up and holds out his hand to the girl. I hope so. Welcome to Pervaza, ladies. It is not easy to stay here. Will everything be okay with you? Cecilia assures the prince that she has prepared well for her stay in this northern town. Carlyle orders Lionel to allocate a room on the second floor for the Countess. Carlyle himself wants to introduce his guest to the mistress of the castle. A few minutes later, Cecilia enters the room. The girl wipes her face with a towel. You called me? Carlyle apologizes for taking his wife away from important matters. The guy recommends Cecilia Dupet to Asha, a person who will help him in business. For the black-haired woman as well as for Carlyle, the visit of the Countess was a surprise. Lady Dupay stands up and smiles at the Marquise. Nice to meet you, Marquise. Chorvelosa says that the road to Pervaz must have been difficult for the young Countess, because the city's roads are still being restored. The blonde says that only her maid was difficult. Due to the constant bouncing of the carriage on potholes, she could not do anything. I'm sure it was, Asha calmly answers. The girl asks Carlyle where his guest will live. The guy says that he has allocated rooms for Cecilia on the second floor. The blonde tries to pretend that she is sorry that she will live on the same floor as the prince. The Countess thinks that Asha will become jealous. But no. The black-haired woman is calm. You are His Highness's guest, so he decides where to accommodate you. The first floor is unfit for a young lady. Carlyle knows that his wife still lives in what he thinks are scary rooms. The guy asks Asha to arrange them. Of course, he will pay for all the necessary materials for this. Fine, says the black-haired man. The girl is going to leave the young Countess and Carlyle. The Marquise has urgent business. The redhead and Cecilia say goodbye to the girl. Viscount's room. The man is working with documents, but he is not thinking about work at all. The prince's aide was angered by Cecilia's arrival. The man is also dissatisfied with the good relationship between the Marquise and the prince. Lately everything is not as it should be, he says. The Viscount is convinced that Cecilia will fight for Carlyle. She is as greedy as Queen Beatrice. But the wife of the future king must be able to calmly support her husband. That's what my daughter would do, says the Viscount. He decides to summon Dorothy, his only child, to Pervaz. A few days later, the Viscount's daughter receives a letter from her father. The girl does not really want to go to Pervaz, but she has no choice.